We are card carrying. Okay. Everybody be quiet. Hello, Joe LaRocca speaking. Is this Peter?
This is Parke.
Parke, sorry. I knew I was going to say that all day. I've been thinking your name was Peter all day, and the other Joe has been going, no, it's Parke. And I go, oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's probably the Puterbaugh part.
Puterbaugh.
Yeah.
We were thinking it was Puterbaugh.
How long you, Puterbaugh?
Puterbaugh. Okay, that's good. All right, let me just make sure. Is the audio coming in good? All right, everything's good. So, yes, PHISH, the biography. You wrote this book.
I did indeed.
I was very excited to have the opportunity to talk to you because I've kind of gone the whole course with PHISH, I feel like. I came in like probably a little bit late. After reading the book, I realized that I probably came in around Hoist or so, where my brother was had a BMG record subscription and got Hoist because one of his friends, who had a friend in college, said it was cool. And basically then throughout high school, I saw them, a handful of times, a bunch of times, until it all culminated to seeing them at, when they reunited, seeing them at the IT Festival, and then basically from that point, being like passionately in love with them to basically never seeing a big concert ever again and never having the desire to see them. So I feel like I've gone full circle, whereas, where you get to the point where, all the people who are super fans think, like Hoist is like the poser album or whatever, or the, like the entry-level album, and that you don't understand PHISH unless you listen to it live. And I feel like I've come all the way back around to Hoist probably being my favorite album of theirs, just because
I loved Hoist, and I loved Rift, which came out right before it. To this day, I think Rift is...
Yeah, and Story of a Ghost are all... I actually have really enjoyed their studio albums, which I know is like not what you're supposed to say if you're a PHISH fan,
Well, I mean, if you're in PHISH, they put a lot of time and effort and thought into making their records be as good as they could, so they're not dismissive of them.
Yeah, because that's always the thing you would hear from the fans, that they don't even care about their studio albums. They they just have to do that. I remember hearing that and being like, it's not the vibe you get from listening to, most, I would say like half of their albums are very, very well, or they're all well produced, but about half of them feel, really complete and definitely well thought about, and not necessarily focusing on the jamming aspect,
No, and I think they tried to do in the studio what the Grateful Dead seldom were able to do, which is to carve out a different identity for themselves, and have their records stand on their own as being a representation of that group of songs they'd written and recorded. With the Dead, I think the studio albums were somewhat problematic, especially post American Beauty.
Yeah.
Maybe Terrapin. Yeah, Terrapin was a good one.
Yeah.
But PHISH, whatever else you think about those records, they certainly did not treat them lightly. They spent months working on them, deciding where they wanted to work and with whom, and how to winnow the batch of material down to a great sounding record. So no, I think the fans, or those who dismiss them, are off base, because PHISH certainly didn't dismiss them.
Right, exactly. I think that's a really good point. I mean, what do you think are some of the biggest differences between PHISH, and because I know it's a big topic both in the book and just, in the public, especially how they really ramped up when Jerry Garcia died, to just kind of people, put the helm on them for being the jam band. And there are similarities, but what do you think are some of the major differences?
Well, I think they came along in a different age. I think that they came along in an age of I don't know, the internet and technology being very, very different. I think as I've had this discussion with Kevin Shapiro, the band's archivist, he pointed out that the Dead in concert would hit and sustain a groove. The idea was to, find and maintain a groove over the course of a set, whereas PHISH were a lot more, jumping around. I mean, you would get a ton of variety in within a set of PHISH. You'd get wild, lengthy, jammed-out songs. You'd get short, intense, fast, almost hardcore songs. You'd get a little bit of Americana. You'd get a left-field cover version.
Yeah, that's true.
But whereas with the Dead, they really did try to hit and maintain a groove for the duration of that thing, and they wouldn't step too far outside that groove, tempo-wise, material-wise. And PHISH was a lot more erratic, not erratic in a bad way, but just erratic in that they tended to move around a lot more. So so that I think is one big difference, and I think it kind of put off some of the older Dead heads who were used to being put in that comfort zone by Jerry and the gang. And PHISH, while they'll be the first to admit that the Grateful Dead were important in pointing them in the kind of direction they
like setting up how you do it, how you
down the road. Their influence, I would say there's an equal influence, musically speaking, from the likes of Carlos Santana, and from Led Zeppelin, and from Jimi Hendrix, and Frank Zappa.
Yeah.
And Crimson.
That's a good point. No, I mean, I always wondered why, for some reason, when I was really, really big into PHISH, why the Dead never really, I'd always hear them and, but it just never hit me the same way. And I always kind of felt that they kind of got looped together just based on the nature that they kind of do similar things in the sense that they have a similar type crowd, I would say, that follows them to a degree.
And they travel across America playing
tons of
large outdoor venues, a very loyal audience that will follow them from show to show.
Have you seen like hundreds of PHISH shows, or how did you come upon this topic? I mean,
I wish I'd seen hundreds. No, I'd say at this point it's more like 50, something like that. A rather modest number, but some very key shows in addition to just average, ordinary shows. I mean, I've been to a number of the Halloween concerts and the New Year's Eve shows.
I went to New Year's Eve in Madison Square Garden, but probably the most recent time they did it. Because I know there was a time that I didn't see.
Yeah, I saw them in '95. I think it was New Year's Eve.
That must have been pretty amazing. That's when they were rocking the biggest, I feel like.
Classic, one of the great concerts, one of the great PHISH shows. Lives very high in the lore of PHISH concerts.
one of those shows, I actually saw Trey solo, and it was one of the best. That was actually one of the best shows I had seen, just because it was at Great Woods, or Tweeter, or whatever the hell you want to call it, which is up here, right outside of Boston, and there was just so much energy that I remember that, and it wasn't so much about, I mean, I got really, really tired of like the parking lot scene, because by the time I think I got into them, the drug scene was pretty aggressive and kind of like, I don't know, a little bit creepy was kind of how I felt, especially at the IT Festival. It took us, it's really 9 hours away from where I live, to Limestone, Maine, or whatever.
Right.
And it took us 25 hours to get there.
Ouch.
And we were, after 9 hours, we were 2.5 miles away from the campground, and it took us another 16 hours to get in from there, because there had been so much rain that they had to like put gravel and hay down on the parking spots that were like had potential of washing away. because it was turning into like a swamp.
Yes.
It was crazy, and I remember getting in there and just like being made really uneasy by the size of it. Just being like, wow, this is scary, and that it could get out of control, especially when you're walking around and everybody's offering you crazy drugs. You know, it's like kind of got a little intense for me, I feel like.
You know, the band, that's one of the reasons, that was one of their strategies, and obviously maybe it didn't work so well, was to escape. They wanted to escape that drug scene by putting these festivals in the most out-of-the-way places possible, right. So maybe to discourage the entrepreneurial drug dealers.
Right. Exactly. I mean, and I think that, I mean, and I feel bad that they get, you know, that's, I mean, in a way, though, that fan base is very dedicated, but I don't know. I ate something, and I ate a pancake that I bought from somebody, and things started happening.
Oh, you got...
Everybody on the set's now looking at me. Maybe we won't talk about it. Damn, why was that pancake so expensive? That's what I remember saying.
Well,
I don't know.
Tell you what, it's...
Mom, if you're watching this, I'm joking.
95 was a turning point year, because that was the year that Garcia died.
Right, so then...
I really do think that some of that, the darker side of the Dead scene traveled over to the PHISH scene.
Yeah, because, I mean, they're, yeah.
Not, you know?
Yeah. And, I mean, are they officially together still? Because I know they had some concerts recently, right? The past year, haven't they?
Talking about the Dead, or?
No, about PHISH.
Oh, yes, they are. In fact...
they're officially a band again now, right?
Oh, absolutely. Since March of 2009.
Okay.
Did 3 nights of reunion shows at Hampton, Virginia, which, and they're, you know, and they're back. And, you know, they tour on a less hectic schedule. They're not killing themselves, but they're out there.
Yeah.
They're starting out their summer tour with 3 nights in Bethel, New York, which is where the original Woodstock Festival was held.
That'll be cool. Wow, I have kind of a desire now to see him again. Is that right about the time I was really big into him in high school, and then when I got to college, I kind of got introduced to just so many more different types of music, and there were bands like, you know, the Pixies or Guided by Voices or something that were able to reach what at least I felt the same like emotional level that it would take, you know, PHISH 6 to 15 minutes to get to, which is not, I know that's totally fine. That's their way of doing it. And then I found I don't know, I just kind of got interested in these bands that seem to do it in like a minute and a half, and it kind of blew my mind. But then I was really turned off by them seeing them in such a big like venue. I think that now if and it feels like they got really tired of that too.
Well, yeah, they did for sure, and I think it really wore on them. And then their final concert, which was a total disaster, was this festival in Coventry, Vermont.
Oh, this is right. Well, yeah, what happened here? Tell us the story of this. And if people at home are watching, they don't know, PHISH generally, like, for like, how many years did they put on, like maybe once a year, or once every 2 years, they'd put on a huge outdoor festival? That's
right, and this was their farewell, their final concert, and it was...
What really went wrong, though? Weather was bad, right?
Well, the weather was just atrocious. It had rained so much, and didn't usually rain there that time of year, but the gods must have been angry or something, because...
They didn't want PHISH to break up.
As your experience with it, I mean, they're having to put down plywood boards for the people to walk around and figure out the parking, because the fields they were going to use were so super saturated and spongy that it was just a big muddy mess. And well, the funny thing is, they were asked, they got on the radio at the behest of the Vermont State Police and basically told people not to come, and because there was no way to get in and the conditions were too bad. And, but there are already people there, and those that were en route, and it's one of the testimonies to how loyal their fans are and the length they'll go to. They couldn't go any further up the interstate, so they parked by the side of the road and walked in, and some people walked 20 and 30 miles.
That's crazy. People were, when I was in line for it, like I said, for like 12 hours, just basically queuing up just to get in, basically. There were people like just bathing in this river that was beside the road, and people from the houses all in the area brought out their grills and started like making food and giving it to people. It was crazy. I mean, it was definitely part of the experience, but you know, it's much nicer just to take the subway downtown and just see a show. You know, a little bit less of an ordeal.
Well, and then they weren't in the best of health, themselves.
Mm-hmm.
A sad occasion, and it was not their best playing, and that's what convinced me that they were going to. Even though they broke up, even though that was the last show, and they were as far as anyone was concerned, they'd broken up. I figured that there had to be more. They couldn't end their story with that.
I mean, it makes sense to. I mean, what did they traveled for like 15 years playing like how many shows a year did they play? Like I remember at one point in the book it was like they had a modest year of 120 shows or something like that. And I was like, Jesus, that's a lot. I mean, they've literally played like 1,500 shows, right?
Well,
something along the lines of that.
That's over 1,500.
That's crazy.
I think their biggest year was 1990. They played almost 150 shows. That's like almost every other day.
Yeah.
So that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and if you've been to a PHISH show, it's not like it's an experience. It's not just someone sitting around noodling on a guitar. It is a long show usually, and very, a lot of effort goes into it. It's not like
definitely 2 sets, usually at least 75 minutes per set, and so by the time it's all said and done, they've played well over 3 hours, and
yeah, it's amazing.
That's very different than your typical rock band that comes out and does an hour and 15 minutes of...
Yep, the same year when I was really into them, I went to a Dave Matthews Band show, and I was in the third deck of it is the Gillette Stadium now. It was Foxborough then, where the New England Patriots play, and you couldn't even see them, and they played for like an hour and 10 minutes, and I was like, this is the lamest band I've ever heard, because a few weeks earlier I'd seen Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young play, and they're all like 70 years old. They're like dying, and they played like 3 hours, And so when I was like, all right, there, you gotta some criteria for me now on judging.
Better bands. You say that about Dave Matthews than me.
Yeah, you can't.
But
unless you.
The truth is that I don't think they've ever generated near or any jam band really, to me, ever came close to the kind of kinetic energy that PHISH can generate when they're really...
Yep, I mean, I completely agree. That's why it was strange for me, because a lot of my friends who were into them were also into a lot of other jam bands, and I just couldn't, for some reason, a lot of the other, especially then, the Disco Biscuits came out, and I immediately was like, this is gonna be this is like a big change if some of the crowd goes this way, because it's more of a club vibe to them, and I know that they also have a kind of a scary drug crowd as well.
Well, Disco Biscuits is slang for street slang for...
What is it, ecstasy?
Yeah,
Well, those guys are jerks. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. No, but I remember a friend of mine went and saw him and got kicked out because a friend of his was sick, who was just legitimately sick, and they all got kicked out, and it was scary, I guess. Anyway, that's not an interesting story. I apologize for telling it. Anyway, you live in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Hmm?
I got nothing. Where we're not allowed to say where people can buy this book, but if they want to get more information on it, do you have your own website?
No, I don't. I've just haven't gone to the trouble to set up my own website yet.
But if people put in the title of the book
yeah,
and your name, they will find it and can read more about it.
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
Good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we are an access station. No call to action. But and also go rent it from your library and return your old books and pay up because they need the money to keep going. Anyway, Parke, thank you very much for talking to me for so long. Keep writing these books, and I'm going to keep reading them, and then we'll keep having you on.
And what's the deal? Are they playing up there? Are they playing near you?
They probably are this summer. We just got the book here, and I went, hey, I've heard every PHISH song ever, probably. That's what I said. And they go, oh, good, you can interview them. And I went, that sounds great. So, I mean, I feel that, I mean, I guess, what do you feel like they're like now? I haven't seen them since they've gotten back together. How would you compare it to they were in the past?
Well, fans refer to them now, this is PHISH 3.0.
Okay, yeah.
And up to the hiatus in '99, that's right. PHISH 1.0.
Yep.
And from hiatus to breakup is 2.0, and now this is 3.0. I think version 3.0 is more streamlined. I think that the jams do not go on as long as they did at the height of, when they were...
Yeah, when you get a 42-minute tweezer or something, yeah.
And to me, it's almost like a classicist version of PHISH. I mean, to me, they're really doing it right. There's no corner of their huge catalog that they won't revisit at some time or another. Nothing is off limits.
Yeah.
The jams are concise, and to me, they're just really clear-headed and communicating.
Well, I think that's a really interesting part in the book when after Trey's he gets in trouble a little bit for some drugs and whatnot. Actually, pretty big trouble. It sounded like, in terms of course, if he wasn't a musician, he'd probably definitely be in jail. But he got some, long probation. And there's that quote he says where, way back in '95, he says, "You think I'm going to be playing You Enjoy Myself for the rest of my life, traveling around?" And then after all that stuff, he says, I'd play that song 5 times a day.
Yeah.
Just to not, I don't know what I was thinking. But I think that's, shows that they kind of got out of the way they wanted to be. Now, I'm actually interested in seeing them again. I would definitely go. And
I think you'd be pleased. I think you really would enjoy what you saw. And to me, even the crowd is, I don't want to say tamer, because they're definitely into the music every bit as much as they were.
Right.
They just seem a little more clear-headed themselves. Maybe that's just the arc that the band and the
people themselves take. Yeah, because they always say that when we're getting compared to being, when they were getting called a drug band, they're like, what, these kids are going to do drugs either way,
Yeah.
I'm just giving them something to do,
Right.
Might as well listen to something. So anyway, Parke, thank you very much for talking to us, and I hope we get a chance to talk again soon. Maybe about, are you writing something now?
I appreciate it. Enjoyed talking to you.
Are you writing something right now?
Oh, am I? I'm in the process. I mean, after doing writing that book, which ate up about 2-3 years of my life, I took a break from book writing, and I'm doing college teaching and more just magazine, newspaper type writing. But I'm getting the bug to write another book, and I have a bunch of ideas. So. And I do write travel books that I update every now and again. I've written a couple beach guidebooks, I guess you would say. I have guides to the beaches in every beach in California, every beach in Florida. So I'm kind of a beach bum when I'm not doing music writing.
Yeah, it sounds like you got a real rough life traveling around with PHISH and going to the beach, writing books about it. You're a very smart man for picking that career. So finish your next book, I don't care what it's about, and send it on down here and we'll have you on.
All right, appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Have a good weekend.
You too. See ya.
Wow. Parke Puterbaugh. He Fish. My God, Anthony, you have anything to say?
No.
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 Should I tell one of my fish stories real quick?
Do you have time?
I think we have time just to roll it out on this.
Okay.
Well,
can I just say, for anybody concerned, our roommate is fine. He's alive.
Oh, he is?
Yeah.
What was he doing?
She found him. I don't know.
Where was he?
I only heard her side of it. I didn't ask.
She called you?
Or she Facebooked me.